Hello and welcome back to Time Under Tension. My name is Olivia Gravengard and I am your host. And I thought about saying who I am, what I am. I'm a nurse, I'm a professional bodybuilder, I'm a jujitsu athlete, all these things, all these titles. And it's hard because to put yourself into a title as your identifier, it shorts changes you, right? I think we all really want to be known, and these labels that we have only show a portion of ourselves. And so I thought about what is the deeper title that I'd like to have. And truly, I think, regardless of the external pursuit, whether it's a sport or whether it's a career or whether it's a role within a relationship, for me, ultimately, my driving goal and the things I do is to grow and to learn how to love better in this life, how to live out love. And I think that living out love comes from discovering truth and then letting that guide your life. So it's a little bit more complex than a title, but that's what I'm here to do. And that's why I do this podcast. Selfishly, talking through things in a monologue fashion helps me understand concepts more deeply and hopefully more generously hope that what I learn and what I talk about helps you in your journey to find truth in your own life so that you can have more clarity in who you are and what you want out of this one wild and precious life. I've been thinking a lot about identity. Identity drives what we do. When we believe certain things about ourselves, even if we try to act differently than those beliefs, if we don't truly address the underlying beliefs, we'll continue to live out of them. And beliefs are driven by identity. When I was in high school, I struggled with binge eating. And just before that in middle school is when it truly started. So let's start there. I like to give a lot of background to stories, but I think that context is important. In middle school, I started binging and I also started swimming. So swimming, thankfully, helped counteract some of the binging in terms of some of the effects on my body, but definitely not the effects on my mind. And I also found that when I started swimming, I wasn't naturally an athlete. I did not have a mindset of the champion. I wanted to stay in the slow lane and swim at the back and maintain a comfortable pace. And thank God I had an incredible swim coach who recognized that and kicked my butt every single day and dragged me to the front of the line and then pushed me in the next lane and then pushed me to the fast lane and then put me in front of everyone and told me to go. And in doing that, she helped reveal to me my own capabilities, which I think is one of the greatest possible gifts you could ever give someone in your life. But out of that, though my behavior changed, though I started pushing myself, I still continue to operate with an identity of being an underachiever, of being someone who was lazy, someone who settled for the comfortable route, someone who did not push themselves to grow. And in an effort to overcome that identity, I continued to push myself. I was running so fast, so far away from being lazy, trying to outrun it, that I was focused on what I was avoiding much more than where I was headed. And while this worked, the quality of life that it afforded was not one that was very fulfilling. No matter what I accomplished, it felt like all I was doing was trying to outrun something that was nipping at my heels continuously because I still had this idea of my identity as someone who has no self-control and binges and can't take care of themselves and can't be trusted around food and can't be trusted to push themselves hard on their own. Like I had all these beliefs about myself that drove the way that I showed up. And thankfully, the coach inserted a reflection of my capabilities that allowed me to at least push myself. But again, I was still acting out of a certain belief system. And it's taken a long time and it's still consistently a work in progress. But what I've learned over time is that a more effective way to move forward in your life, not just to make progress, because again, you can make progress from trying to outrun your demons consistently, but is to instead focus on a positive vision towards which you want to direct your life. And that can feel extremely vague. And I think that's where people get caught up. It's like you can have a vision board and it may have very specific things on it. Like, I want to go to Italy, or I want to skydive, or I want to learn how to fly a plane. And those are great things. But I think that the deeper purpose of having tangible goals like that is that you're expecting a feeling to be associated with that, or you're expecting a state of being to be associated with that. If I were to earn my black belt in jujitsu, that seems like a solid goal. But truly, the underlying goal for me is to be the kind of person who proves to themselves that I can commit to a goal long term and be in an endurance race. I can fine tune my technique over time until it is undeniable that I am at a certain level of aptitude within a sport, that I can prove to myself that I can commit 10 plus years to something that is continuously hard and mostly challenging more than it is rewarding in some ways, that can be painful, that is going to require me to do things that I don't want to do that day, that is going to require me to increase my tolerance to pain and discomfort and embarrassment, all of those things. That is truly what underlies that goal. So I think that part of moving towards a vision more effectively is shifting away from the necessary step of at least starting to try to outrun those things that chase you, outrun your demons. But then, in order to improve your quality of life and actually enjoy the journey and thrive along the way, and not just continuously strive and maybe achieve but never feel fulfilled, it's to instead align yourself with a positive vision of, this is where I want to go. This is the thing I want to accomplish. And here is why. Here is what's actually driving that pursuit. It's not just so I can get my black belt, period. That's not really it. There's much deeper motivations underneath that. And I think what that also does is it does allow for flexibility. So say I lose a leg in a car accident. Well, getting my black belt in jujitsu may be possible, but okay, let's get more dramatic. Let's get more real. If I get paralyzed, getting my black belt in jujitsu will probably be impossible. But the goals underlying that external goal still stand for me. I want to be someone who proves myself that I can push through hard things, all those things I just listed. And I can find an arena in which to accomplish those goals. What's helpful about having a tangible goal is it gives you an arena in which to develop the skills that you're actually trying to develop, or to evolve your character and your sense of self to a certain point. And having an external pursuit allows you a path upon which you can do those things and achieve those things and become the kind of person that you want to be. So that's the value of a goal. But when we see where we are and we have this long-term vision of like, I want to be that kind of person, it can be really daunting to try to move towards that because it doesn't feel extremely tangible at times. I want to be a disciplined person. Well, what does that mean? And I might have ideas about what that might look like in my life, but one thing that I've found can be really helpful is to look at people that you admire who embody those qualities or have achieved that goal and ask, what are they doing? What does their day to day look like? Because yes, they may have achieved the long-term goal, and I'm seeing the end result of that. I'm meeting this black belt, as they are now, but actually talking to them about what worked for you when you were at my level, when you were a white belt, what were you doing every day? And then when you were a blue belt, what would you have done differently as a white belt? Like, you learned and grew. Teach me that. Tell me what you learned along this journey. And what does your day to day look like? And then to some degree, start to emulate those things in your life. Another example of this, I always wanted a healthy relationship with food, and I never thought I would, because from binging as a kid to dealing with pretty severe anorexia throughout college, high school and college, and then trying to overcome that through bodybuilding, which can also be pretty disordered and restrictive at times. I never thought I would have a healthy relationship with food. And then I decided, you know what? I had a therapist tell me, once you have an eating disorder, you always have an eating disorder. You just have to manage it. And yes, I think that there are patterns that are ingrained, and I have like a default that I can naturally slip back into during times that I'm feeling stressed. But I decided I didn't want to settle for that. And so instead of trying to forge my way through the brush, I stepped back and asked, who in my life has a healthy relationship with food? And I saw my brother. And I saw that my brother knows when he's hungry and he leans into that. And some days he's not as hungry and he leans into that. And some days he wants some ice cream. And so he has that for dinner. And some days he kind of feels like he wants to tighten up a little bit. So he eats more vegetables. Like, it's a very intuitive process. And seeing someone live that out day to day gave me a realistic example of what that kind of lifestyle would look like. Like, he has achieved this goal that I want, which is to have a healthy relationship with food in his body. Now, what does his day to day look like? Because that's what's actually led him to this outcome. And while I may be so focused on the outcome, like, I just want to have this healthy relationship, really that is just built on what I do today. And every day is an opportunity to embody that lifestyle. And then you continue that on, you realize that you have become that along the way. And that is the paradox. It's like having a goal that you're working towards, but then surrendering that goal to your daily actions every single day. And I think that we lose a sense of community in so many ways, and we start to slip into comparison in our culture, and it's divisive. It's divisive because we can't support one another. But when we come back to community, one benefit of that, among many, is that we are suddenly surrounded by people who inspire us. And yeah, maybe this person inspires us in one area and we think that they are a shit show in another area. That's okay. That happens too. But that doesn't mean we can't glean something from them in that area in which they really show up effectively, and start to take what you need from different people, knowing also that you have an opportunity to give as well. For me, fitness is very second nature. I don't think a lot about it. It's such a huge part of my life. Like, being active is just part of who I am. So I'm so happy when I meet someone who's interested in that and they have a skill set or a way of living or a character trait or a routine that I really aspire to ingrain into my own life. I see this opportunity to exchange and say, hey, let me tell you a little bit about what I've learned in my journey and what I do from day to day, because it's just my default. It's not even that hard for me. Like, I don't feel like making it a big deal, but like to someone else, that could be extremely helpful to get that insight because you might take it for granted because it's just the thing that you do naturally. And same for them. And when you start to collaborate like that, you say, oh, here's what I can give to you, and here's what you can give to me. We can also walk this journey together as we grow. And I think that is essentially like the purpose of community, is to grow in love with one another. We are in a culture that glorifies grinding and individualism and just putting your head down and doing the work, and it's you versus you, and there is merit in that. Ultimately, we do this life with ourselves. And so we need to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. And we need to know that the Spirit of God is inside of us if we accept it. And we can live out of that. And we have a responsibility to do so. But then also, we aren't alone and we don't have everything that we need to thrive without leaning into connection and looking around us for opportunities to be inspired and then to move towards that inspiration through emulation at times. I wanted to have a healthy relationship with my body like my brother did. And so I started to emulate some of the things that he did. Even though I still struggled with my patterns, I started to see my identity shift. Oh, I am a healthy person. Oh, I do have a healthy relationship with food. And I started practicing saying those beliefs. And every time I would feel an intrusive thought come up of like, no, you have an eating disorder, I'd go like, no, look, I'm living a healthy, balanced life. Like, look, I've fed myself even though I've been stressed lately. Like, look, I was able to stop when I was full. Like, you point back to the evidence that you are that kind of person, and that's where your identity begins to shift. And then this goal, which seems so far away and out of reach at times, you realize is something that somewhat embracing and touching, at least touching every single day. I touch the idea of being a black belt every day I show up to jujitsu and commit myself to learning a little bit more. No, I don't have it yet, but it's almost like now I don't have to have it because I'm doing the things that will naturally take me towards that goal. Now I don't have to say I have a perfect relationship with food or that like I've reached an end point in my relationship with food because every day I'm learning to embody what that healthy relationship looks like. And so I'm touching that goal every single day. And now it doesn't seem so far out of reach. So when you feel overwhelmed by the gap between who you are and where you want to be, or what you have and what you want, I'd encourage you to pause, to recognize first, to accept that it is possible. It is possible. If someone else in this world achieved it, it is possible. And then look to your resources. Who around you is living the kind of life? Who around you has achieved that goal? Who around you intimidates you? Who around you inspires you? And then what can you learn from them? Because you're having to learn a new way to live, because a new way to live is what's going to take you to a new destination other than the one towards which you've been headed. If you find yourself in the same patterns, it's probably because the same identity is shaping those beliefs. So you can change your actions, but if you're not shifting the identity that underlies it, you're going to start doing the same things over again. Or you might change your behaviors and still feel exactly the same about yourself. But when you allow yourself to open up to the idea of having a shift in identity, which can be inspired by recognizing how other people identify and their beliefs and their way of living, you can integrate what works for you and start to build a life that is inspired by the people around you. And then you can mutually inspire others around you as well. And that's how we grow together. So I hope this was helpful. I think this has been a big theme in my own journey lately where sometimes I can feel extremely bogged down by the weight of shame, the weight of where I am versus where I want to be, how far that distance seems, how big the gap is between those two. And I can get discouraged. But I miss the opportunity to reflect back on how far I've come. And I miss the chance to just live in joy in the midst of the growth and to be inspired by others around me instead of intimidated and to be thankful for people who make me feel intimidated because it is actually inspiration. It is actually an opportunity to gain something from them and to build them up along the way and say, "Hey, you really inspire me. What can you teach me about this path?" And then we all have the opportunity to step into this journey together. And I think that's an extremely powerful and rewarding and fulfilling way to live, where we're truly embracing the joy that comes with each step of the journey instead of tying all of our worth, instead of tying all of our potential joy to an outcome that, again, isn't just about the outcome. It's about the deeper purpose and meaning that we put behind achieving that outcome, which is something that we can begin to embody starting today. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. You can see this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. And if you have any questions or ever want to connect, please feel free to email or DM me. Thank you so much for supporting, and I will catch you next time on Time Under Tension.